Your Next 5 Moves. Master the Art of Business Strategy by Patrick Bet-David provides the essential strategic thinking framework that separates successful entrepreneurs from those who struggle, offering a chess-like approach to business that enables you to anticipate challenges, outmaneuver competitors, and build sustainable wealth through calculated decision-making. Point 1. Master the ability to reason, which Bet-David identifies as the foundational skill that determines your success in business and life, distinguishing between those who react emotionally to circumstances and those who think strategically through problems. The ability to reason involves developing critical thinking skills that allow you to analyze situations objectively, separate facts from emotions, and make decisions based on logic rather than impulse or fear. Bet-David emphasizes that reasoning is not an innate talent, but a learnable skill that requires practice and discipline involving the ability to ask the right questions, gather relevant information, and consider multiple perspectives before reaching conclusions. This skill becomes particularly crucial in business, where emotional decisions often lead to costly mistakes, failed partnerships, and missed opportunities that could have been avoided through careful analysis and strategic thinking. The development of reasoning ability requires studying how successful people think and make decisions, learning from historical examples of both success and failure, and constantly challenging your own assumptions and biases that may cloud your judgment. Bet-David argues that most people operate on autopilot, making decisions based on immediate emotions or social pressure rather than taking the time to think through the long-term consequences of their actions. The ability to reason also involves understanding cause and effect relationships, recognizing patterns and trends that others miss, and developing the mental discipline to delay gratification when immediate action might feel more satisfying but ultimately prove counterproductive. This foundational skill serves as a bedrock for all other strategic thinking abilities, because without the ability to reason effectively, all other business strategies and tactics become ineffective or even dangerous when applied incorrectly. Point 2. Master being able to challenge your own assumptions and beliefs, which Bet-David presents as essential for continued growth and adaptation in rapidly changing business environments. This ability requires developing intellectual humility and the courage to question ideas and strategies that have worked in the past but may no longer be effective in current circumstances. But David emphasizes that many entrepreneurs and business leaders fail because they become attached to outdated methods, strategies, or beliefs that once brought success but now limit their ability to adapt to new market conditions, technological changes, or competitive pressures. The process of challenging assumptions involves regularly examining your business model, marketing strategies, operational procedures, and even fundamental beliefs about your industry to determine whether they still serve your objectives effectively. This skill requires creating systems and processes that encourage honest feedback from employees, customers, and advisors who can provide outside perspectives that you may not be able to see from your position within the organization. Bet-David argues that successful entrepreneurs must be willing to abandon strategies, products, or even entire business lines that are no longer profitable or strategically viable, even when these decisions feel emotionally difficult or go against conventional wisdom. The ability to challenge assumptions also involves staying curious and continuously learning about your industry, competitors, and market trends rather than assuming that past success guarantees future results. This process requires developing comfort with uncertainty and change while maintaining the confidence to make bold decisions when the evidence supports a new direction, even if that direction contradicts your previous experience or expertise. Point 3. Master the ability to process issues, which involves developing systematic approaches to identifying, analyzing, and solving complex business problems before they become crises that threaten your organization's survival or growth. Bet-David emphasizes that successful entrepreneurs distinguish themselves not by avoiding problems, but by developing superior problem-solving capabilities that allow them to address issues quickly and effectively, while learning from each experience to prevent similar problems in the future. This skill requires developing the ability to recognize early warning signs of potential problems, gathering relevant information efficiently, and creating action plans that address both immediate symptoms and underlying root causes. The issue processing involves breaking complex problems into manageable components, prioritizing which issues require immediate attention versus those that can be addressed over time, and allocating resources effectively to ensure that critical problems receive appropriate focus and attention. Bet-David argues that many businesses fail not because they face insurmountable problems, but because their leaders lack the systematic thinking skills necessary to process issues, effectively leading to reactive decision-making that often creates additional problems while failing to address original concerns. Effective issue processing also requires developing emotional regulation skills that allow you to remain calm and focus during crises, enabling clear thinking and strategic decision-making when pressure and stress might otherwise lead to poor choices. This ability involves creating organizational systems and procedures that help identify potential problems early, establish clear communication channels for reporting issues, and ensure that problem-solving processes are documented and improved over time based on experience and results. Point 4. Master the ability to understand how all the pieces fit together, which Bet David describes as systems. Thinking that enables you to see the big picture and understand how different aspects of your business, industry, and market environment interact with and influence each other. This skill involves developing the capacity to think beyond individual departments, functions, or initiatives to understand how changes in one area of your business affect all other areas, enabling more effective strategic planning and decision-making. Systems thinking requires understanding the relationships between marketing and sales, operations and customer service, financial management and growth strategies, and how external factors like economic conditions, regulatory changes, and competitive actions impact your entire organization. Bet David emphasizes that entrepreneurs who master systems thinking can identify opportunities and threats that others miss, because they understand how seemingly unrelated events or trends might create cascading effects throughout their industry or market. This ability involves developing knowledge across multiple business disciplines rather than specializing in just one area, enabling you to make connections and identify patterns that specialists in individual functions might not recognize. The skill of understanding how pieces fit together also requires developing strong analytical abilities that allow you to model different scenarios and predict potential outcomes based on various strategic decisions or market changes. Bet David argues that this systems perspective becomes increasingly important as businesses grow larger and more complex, requiring leaders who can coordinate multiple moving parts while maintaining focus on overall strategic objectives. This ability also involves understanding your role within larger economic and social systems, recognizing how your business decisions affect customers, employees, communities, and other stakeholders in ways that can ultimately impact your long-term success and sustainability. Point 5. Master the ability to study patterns, which Bet David presents as a critical skill for predicting future trends, identifying opportunities, and avoiding common mistakes that have derailed other entrepreneurs and businesses throughout history. Pattern recognition involves studying successful and failed businesses in your industry and related industries to understand what strategies and decisions typically lead to positive or negative outcomes under different circumstances. This skill requires developing historical perspective and learning from the experiences of others, rather than assuming that your situation is completely unique or that you must learn everything through personal trial and error. Bet David emphasizes that entrepreneurs who study patterns can often predict market cycles, identify emerging opportunities before competitors, and avoid strategic mistakes that have destroyed other businesses facing similar challenges. The ability to study patterns involves researching industry trends, analyzing competitor strategies, and understanding economic cycles that affect business performance over time. This skill requires developing curiosity about business history and dedicating time to reading case studies, biographies of successful entrepreneurs, and analysis of major business successes and failures. Pattern recognition also involves understanding human psychology and behavior patterns that influence customer decisions, employee motivation, and market dynamics, enabling more effective marketing, management, and strategic planning. Bet David argues that studying patterns helps entrepreneurs develop intuition and judgment that cannot be gained through formal education alone, providing practical wisdom that comes from understanding how similar situations have played out in the past. This ability becomes particularly valuable during uncertain times when historical patterns can provide guidance for navigating unfamiliar territory and making decisions with incomplete information. Point 6. Master the skill of playing devil's advocate, which involves deliberately challenging your own ideas, strategies, and decisions by considering alternative perspectives and potential negative outcomes before committing resources or taking action. Bet David emphasizes that this skill protects entrepreneurs from overconfidence and blind spots that can lead to costly mistakes, failed ventures, and missed opportunities that could have been identified through more thorough analysis. Playing devil's advocate requires intellectual honesty and the emotional maturity to consider criticism and alternative viewpoints without becoming defensive or dismissive of ideas that contradict your preferences or assumptions. This process involves systematically examining the weaknesses in your business plans, identifying potential obstacles and challenges that could prevent success, and developing contingency plans for addressing problems that may arise during implementation. Bet David argues that entrepreneurs who master this skill make better decisions. They have considered multiple scenarios and prepared for various possible outcomes rather than assuming that everything will go according to their original plan. The ability to play devil's advocate also involves seeking out advisors, mentors, and team members who are willing and able to provide honest feedback and challenge your thinking rather than surrounding yourself with people who simply agree with your ideas. This skill requires creating organizational culture and decision-making processes that encourage dissenting opinions and alternative perspectives while maintaining respect for different viewpoints and the ability to make final decisions efficiently. The practice of playing devil's advocate helps entrepreneurs identify potential problems early when they are easier and less expensive to address, rather than discovering issues after significant resources have been invested and options for correction are more limited. Point 7. Master your ability to strategize, which Bet David defines as the capacity to develop comprehensive plans that coordinate multiple resources, timelines, and objectives to achieve long-term business goals, while remaining flexible enough to adapt to changing circumstances. Strategic thinking involves understanding the difference between tactics and strategy, recognizing that individual actions and decisions must support larger objectives and work together synergistically to create competitive advantages that are difficult for competitors to replicate. This ability requires developing long-term perspective and the discipline to make decisions based on strategic objectives rather than short-term pressures or immediate gratification, even when strategic choices may be less popular or require temporary sacrifices. Bet David emphasizes that effective strategizing involves thorough market analysis, competitive intelligence, and understanding of your own organization's strengths and weaknesses relative to the opportunities and challenges in your business environment. Strategic thinking also requires the ability to allocate resources efficiently across multiple priorities and initiatives while maintaining focus on the most critical objectives that will determine your long-term success or failure. This skill involves developing scenario planning capabilities that allow you to prepare for multiple possible futures and create strategies that are robust enough to succeed under various conditions, while remaining flexible enough to pivot when circumstances change. Bet David argues that entrepreneurs who master strategic thinking can build sustainable competitive advantages and create value that extends far beyond their personal involvement in day-to-day operations. The ability to strategize effectively also involves understanding timing and sequence, recognizing that even good ideas can fail if implemented at the wrong time or in the wrong order, and that strategic success often depends as much on when and how you execute as on what you choose to do. Point 8. Master your emotional intelligence and self-awareness, which Bet David identifies as essential capabilities for leading teams, building relationships, and making sound decisions under pressure while maintaining personal effectiveness and well-being. Emotional intelligence involves understanding your own emotional patterns, triggers, and responses while developing the ability to regulate your emotions and remain effective during stressful or challenging situations that test your judgment and leadership capabilities. This skill requires honest self-assessment and continuous personal development to address weaknesses, build on strengths, and develop greater emotional maturity and resilience over time. Bet David emphasizes that entrepreneurs with high emotional intelligence can build stronger relationships with employees, customers, investors, and partners because they understand how their words and actions affect others, and can adjust their communication and leadership style accordingly. Self-awareness also involves understanding your personal values, motivations, and long-term objectives, so that your business decisions align with your authentic goals rather than external expectations or social pressure that may lead you away from fulfillment and success. This ability includes recognizing your own limitations and blind spots, while building teams and advisory relationships that complement your strengths and compensate for your weaknesses. Emotional intelligence in business also involves understanding market psychology and customer emotions that drive purchasing decisions, enabling more effective marketing, sales, and product development strategies. Bet David argues that emotional intelligence becomes increasingly important as businesses grow and success depends more on your ability to influence and inspire others rather than simply executing tasks personally. The development of emotional intelligence and self-awareness requires ongoing reflection, feedbacks, seeking, and personal growth activities that help you understand yourself and others more deeply, while developing greater emotional regulation and interpersonal effectiveness. Point 9. Master the ability to reason with yourself, which involves developing internal dialogue. and decision-making processes that help you make better choices by considering multiple perspectives and potential outcomes before taking action. This skill requires learning to step outside your immediate emotional responses and examine situations objectively, as if you were advising someone else facing similar circumstances rather than being directly involved in the decision. Bet David emphasizes that the ability to reason with yourself protects against impulsive decisions, emotional reactions, and cognitive biases that can lead to poor choices and missed opportunities in business and personal life. This internal reasoning process involves asking yourself tough questions about your motivations, assumptions, and objectives, while honestly examining whether your proposed actions are likely to achieve your desired outcomes. The skill also requires developing patience and discipline to take time for reflection and analysis before making important decisions rather than rushing into action based on immediate emotions or external pressure. But David argues that entrepreneurs who master internal reasoning make more consistent and effective decisions because they have learned to separate their emotions from their logic, while still considering both factors in their decision-making process. This ability involves developing self-discipline and mental clarity that allows you to examine your own thinking patterns, identify potential errors in judgment, and correct course when necessary, rather than persisting with ineffective strategies out of pride or stubbornness. The process of reasoning with yourself also involves understanding your own decision-making patterns and biases. Developing systems and checkpoints that help you make better choices consistently over time, rather than relying solely on intuition or emotional responses to guide important business decisions. Point 10. Master your ability to take calculated risks presents as essential for entrepreneurial success, because significant rewards typically require accepting uncertainty and potential loss while using strategic thinking to maximize probability of success. Calculated risk-taking involves thorough analysis of potential outcomes, careful evaluation of upside potential versus downside risk, and strategic planning that minimizes unnecessary risks while pursuing opportunities with favorable risk-reward ratios. This skill requires distinguishing between reckless gambling and intelligent risk-taking that is based on research, analysis, and strategic planning rather than hope or emotional impulses. Bet David emphasizes that successful entrepreneurs are not risk-averse, but rather become skilled at evaluating and managing risks effectively while maintaining the courage to pursue opportunities that others might avoid due to uncertainty or fear of failure. The ability to take calculated risks involves developing risk management strategies that protect against catastrophic losses while positioning yourself to benefit from positive outcomes, including diversification, insurance, contingency planning, and maintaining sufficient resources to survive temporary setbacks. This skill also requires understanding your personal risk tolerance and financial capacity, while making decisions that align with your long-term objectives rather than being driven by fear or greed. That can lead to either excessive caution or dangerous speculation. Calculated risk-taking involves timing, considerations, and understanding market conditions that may make certain risks more or less attractive at different times, requiring patience to wait for favorable conditions while maintaining readiness to act quickly when opportunities arise. But David argues that the ability to take calculated risks becomes a significant competitive advantage because most people avoid uncertainty and therefore miss opportunities that are available to those willing to accept reasonable risks in pursuit of meaningful rewards. Your next 5 moves transform strategic thinking from an abstract concept into a practical skill set that can be developed and applied systematically, providing entrepreneurs and business leaders with the mental tools necessary to navigate complexity, anticipate challenges, and build successful organizations that create lasting value and competitive advantage. Thank you for joining us in exploring this essential guide to strategic thinking that has helped countless entrepreneurs and business leaders develop the cognitive skills necessary for long-term success. Remember to subscribe to our channel for more business book summaries that provide you with practical insights and proven strategies from successful entrepreneurs and business experts, helping you develop the knowledge and skills necessary to build and grow successful businesses in today's competitive marketplace. Thanks for watching. If this summary gave you value, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful book insights every week. Have a book in mind you want us to cover next? Drop it in the comments. Until then, read smart, grow fast. See you in the next video.